Welcome everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson. Dylan, we were struck again by Chastain, and just the bad luck continued on for Larson this week at Darlington. Obviously picked up the Xfinity win on Saturday, but Ross got him again, the third time this season. What are your thoughts?
Man, it's just I'm curious to know when Kyle is gonna show his displeasure towards Ross. I mean, it's pretty much week after week at this point. Third time with Chastain in the past 4 weeks. You could say Talladega and then Dover and then obviously Darlington, but it's just annoying. Week after week, some idiot just ruins Larson's day. He's been pretty fair in his comments about it with the situation, saying he has a fast car he's looking for the next week. He doesn't really show too much anger towards it. But I mean, his frustration has to be building up when he's running like a 400-mile race as the fastest car, and then it's just ruined week after week at the end. I don't know if he's going to get to that point, but Rick Hendrick talked a little bit about it, saying if you wreck us, we're going to get you back. It's hard to win a
Do you think that's
championship,
going to
and
happen?
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we've had the whole Ross situation since last year, and guys were like, "Oh, this guy Chastain, he's not going to make a playoff run. He's got too many enemies. He's in the Final Four." So I mean, it really didn't hurt him too much. He almost won a championship. So no one's really getting any payback to him. I don't think anything's going to happen unless they do. Maybe just guys team up and give him a taste of their own medicine. But I don't. I mean, he's not going to get suspended or anything for this. I just think people on track need to do something about it.
Well, do you think? I mean, because personally, I think that obviously, I think that people on track need to do something about it. But then also, it kind of puts them in a tricky situation because most of the time with Ross, I think this was one of the first circumstances where Ross has kind of admitted to like, yeah, I did it, and that's it is what it is. But a lot of the other times when Ross has done stuff to people and ran into them and caused mayhem on track, he's never owned up to it, and he's just said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do it." He's never really said it was intentional. But if Kyle goes out this weekend at North Wilkesboro, which I highly doubt he would do that, and pay back Ross Chastain and say Ross got hurt and Larson intentionally wrecked him, who's that going to be? Who is NASCAR going to put that on? It's not going to be on Ross. It's going to be on Kyle. And so NASCAR, in my opinion, does need to do something about Ross. They need to penalize him in some sort of manner to show like, okay, this is not the like quality of racing that we want to see on track. Obviously, you know, a couple times here and there, that you people make mistakes. Kyle makes mistakes from time to time. He owns up to that quite often, messing up and not necessarily doing the right thing. I mean, you look at Saturday, for instance, speeding on pit road and having to come back and win the race. He owned up to that mistake, and it just seems like Ross has time after time not wanted to own up to things. And I wish that I said it last week on the podcast. I wish that they let Noah and Ross go at it because I think that would have changed a little bit if Ross got struck a couple times there. But he got his punch in and he looked like the big bad guy there in that situation. But I think as far as it goes with Kyle and his perspective on things, I think everybody has their breaking point. I mean, Kyle has seemed very calm through this whole thing over the past couple of weeks and really months of getting dumped race after race after race. Should have probably 5, maybe 6 wins at this point. That's not even being like crazy about it. Like literally Kyle should have won maybe 5 or 6 races this season and he's sitting there with 2. I mean, I think if it keeps happening, Kyle's gonna have to do something. I hate to say that, but it's like Rick Hendrick said. You can't just go out there and wreck his drivers and expect not to get it back in return.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your point. I think the suspension would be better, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, I don't think so either.
He's turned into NASCAR's golden boy. Going back to Sunday, I mean, at the restart, race control is
Yeah,
just a joke. He was on the gas before Larson there. He led him in the restart zone. I mean, that was a pretty blatant move, and no one seemed to raise an eye towards it. That's what caused the situation. I mean, Ross got the lead when the caution came out, and you knew Larson, or you knew Chastain was going to just run him into the wall. He was going to take that inside and run him into the wall. So, he took that, gave Larson zero room. He was pretty much riding the wall, put him in the wall. We saw what happened. Then Larson just drove him quarter mile down the track sideways, but it's ridiculous. And then like Cliff Daniels, he said one thing that it was kind of interesting. Chevrolet is the one ruining our week after week. You think the manufacturer should be on the same side? You think Chevrolet would maybe, go to Trackhouse and say, uh, you know, ask if there's a problem? Because when you have a chance to have two Chevys finish 1 and 2, because they were the two dominant cars, and one of them takes both of them out, does Chevy just not care about that? I mean, you would think the manufacturer was kind of stick together, but I don't know. And then the whole Ross thing with the Dale Earnhardt comparisons, I think that's getting kind of old. If you want to wreck someone, don't wreck yourself in the during the sequence. But Dale won races. Ross has not won a race in over a year. His first win was wrecking someone for the win. Second one was Dega. He's just completely idiotic on the track. His moves aren't calculated. I think it is good that we have the villain character of NASCAR, but when it's at the cost of the field week after week, something needs to happen. I mean, if you want to be the villain, own it. Don't, go apologize like you said earlier, like in the interviews. Own the villain, Mark, if you want to be that. But stop giving some BS every week apologizing. It's clear he doesn't mean it. Um, I don't know. Something needs to happen. It's just going to keep continuing week after week, and it's just beating a dead horse. Like we get one on the pod last week talking about the same thing.
Right.
I'm just tired of talking about him at this point.
I agree. I'm tired of talking about it too. And you talk about that villain role a little bit, and I think that that villain role doesn't necessarily come from just wrecking people on the track. I think you saw a lot. There's been a lot of different drivers over the course of NASCAR history that have played that villain role. I mean, Kyle Busch kind of is coming out of that role now, interestingly enough, but he's always really been that like villain role guy. And the thing about Kyle Busch is he's been the villain because he went out and he won races and that pissed people off. But for Ross, he's not winning races. He's just making himself look stupid and he's making the racing product as a whole look stupid. I mean, you tune into these NASCAR races and you see every single week it's the same thing. One car dominates the entire race. Well, not maybe not the entire race. Kyle didn't dominate the entire race, but dominates the entire end portion of the race. The last stage, stage 3, Kyle dominates the entire last stage. Then there's a late race caution that screws it all up. They go for a pit stop. Kyle executes a pit stop. The team executes a perfect pit stop. They go back out there under 10 laps to go, and then somebody gets wrecked. The dominant car gets wrecked, taken out, doesn't win the race, and then nothing happens about it. It's the same story every single week. And it's just getting old. And I think NASCAR fans are tired of it. I mean, maybe it's exciting for some people to go out and watch the Wreckfest every single week because I know there are fans that are like that and enjoy watching that crap, but that's not racing. That's called running into each other and not having any respect for the drivers around. If you want to do that, go watch a figure eight. I mean, this is professional racing, the highest form of racing in the United States, and it looks pitiful right now. It really does. And as a racing purist, I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of seeing Chastain. I think even his team owner's tired of seeing it. I mean, I heard his comments on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Justin Marks came on there and said, he's going to have to step in and start, make talking to Chastain and trying to smooth up some things because the actions that we've seen over the past couple of months have just been crazy, and I don't think I've honestly seen anything like it. I mean, the comparisons to Dale Sr. are, like you said, stupid because, I mean, he's not even winning races. He's just making himself look bad.
Yeah, and then like I said, when you intend to wreck someone, don't wreck yourself in the process.
Right.
So, but I don't know, man. I think NASCAR is just kind of embracing it at this point. Good for ratings, good for views. Like the fight with Gregson, that was years and years. That's a no fighting. But Ross lands a punch on him, and it's all okay. They're putting it on the social media. They're putting it in pre-race videos, just hyping it up. So I don't know. Maybe they're just fans of the bad things that happen. I remember going back to last year when at Vegas when Larson was right hooked by Bubba. that whole situation, they were just posting that everywhere for views, just, saying almost it's a good thing, just applauding it almost. So I don't know. I don't know what NASCAR's plan is. I don't know what any of the team's plan is with handling the situation, but he's made a lot of enemies. It's a matter of if those enemies are going to do anything about it. Pretty much everyone in the field has a problem with him at this point. It seems like, and when you're guys with the same manufacturer, you have a problem with you. I mean, whether or not it's repercussions with wrecking them, but when that time comes and you need help with your Chevys up front, they're not going to help you at all. You're just a lone wolf on your own. So who knows?
Yeah. And you talk about the entertainment product on the track, like, or just NASCAR posting clips and videos and trying to put content out there and of all the stuff that's happening, the fights, the wrecks, whatever it is. I think it's I think it's good to push that content out there, but I think what I don't like to see is, and I think motorsports as a whole is trending towards this of like, we're putting out stuff for entertainment at the expense of the racing product on track. And I think we see that with Formula One. Like, Formula One has blown up over the past couple of years across the United States. And the problem with that is, the racing really isn't that good. I mean, you go watch an F1 race, and you've got two cars that can have a chance of winning: Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. I mean, it's those two guys because they're in the exact same car, and nobody's remotely even close to them. But everybody loves F1 because they have a great Netflix series, and they post content like crazy. And NASCAR's trending towards that because if you watch the Xfinity race on Saturday, it was a lot better race than the race on Sunday. If you look at quality of racing, how the cars maneuvered on track, I mean, Kyle was able to come from, what was it, 30th or
Sure
something
do.
like that, and come up and win the race in what, 47 laps, I think it was. I mean, it was something crazy like that. If that was in the Cup race on Sunday, you probably would have passed five cars because it was hard to pass. And I think that kind of is like what played into that move at the end of the race when Kyle was restarting on the inside and Chastain was on the outside. Chastain clearly jumped the start, but Kyle knew, like, he raced. He had been racing the day before, and then he comes into the Cup race and sees how hard it is to pass. You don't want to let him get by you there, and the caution flag flew. Chastain got ahead, and then that was the end of the race. Really, what kind of led into that, and I guess nobody's really discussed this at all, was Christopher Bell's team with a loose wheel. Christopher Bell would have been on the front row with Larson instead of Ross Chastain. Chastain would have been in row two, and we maybe would have saw a different result there because um, we all know Christopher Bell doesn't race like Ross Chastain. But I guess we have to kind of keep our heads up and be like Kyle. I mean, Kyle is moving on to next week at North Wilkesboro. He's moving on to tonight at Wayne County, where I've got it up on my screen watching it right now. Kyle's out on track for hot laps right now, and quick turnaround when you're Kyle Larson. You got a lot of other stuff to focus on, and this weekend at North Wilkesboro should be a super big one. Awesome event going on. $1 million to win. All-star race there. Kyle's won. He's the only driver, I think, Dylan, to win the All-Star race at two different venues. Two wins at two different venues, winning at Charlotte with Chip Ganassi Racing, and then winning with Hendrick Motorsports at Texas a couple of years ago. Can he make it three different venues at the All-Star race? $3 million for Kyle Larson. Is he going to pull it off this week? Short track package has been super good for Hendrick Motorsports so far this season.
And overall, every package has been good to
I
Hendrick this
mean,
season. I mean,
yeah,
no one can really touch him this year at all. I mean, Byron, you saw picked up the win. If it's not Larson, it's Byron. Elliott, he's been kind of working his way up, getting those good finishes. I think he finished third this weekend. But Larson's also racing the number 7 Spire Motorsports truck at
yeah,
North Wilkesboro. He's racing that in place of Bowman, who's still recovering from that fractured vertebrae. I think Larson mentioned on Race Up last night, Wilkesboro would be his 199th track that he's raced at. So pretty cool stuff there. Maybe he can pick up the first one. I think it's since 1996. So maybe he'll pick up the first one at Wilkesboro since 96 in a NASCAR race. be really cool to see. A lot of guys are out there right now in the asphalt late models practicing at North Wilkesboro, getting some laps down. So it's gonna be a really cool event where we have Darlington this week, where it's kind of a throwback weekend, and I think we're throwing it back even more with Wilkesboro because we just haven't seen that track in a really long time. So it's paying homage to the past racers, and it's definitely going to be a really cool event, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing that track, like, I mean, obviously, like us being like super young, not like watching racing at that track like ever before. It's kind of like it's still cool to like see NASCAR like going back to like more like their roots and I know we talked about this before, but like going to a track like this, I way prefer this over going to like the Clash or doing Chicago Street Course Race or something like that. That's like just seems like a or the Bristol Dirt, like stuff like that. That's just like dumb. I guess that's the best way to put it. Like it's just a dumb one-off event that it's like it doesn't seem like NASCAR. This race truly has that NASCAR look and feel, and I really hope that the racing product is good. I mean, the short track stuff, like we said, has been a lot better over the past couple of races on the short tracks. Obviously, really good for Kyle picking up some wins. I know Kyle said last night on Race Hub like he's a little bit worried about being there. He's not the best with tire degradation and a track like that, an abrasive surface. But I mean, I think he's kind of not giving himself enough credit there, Dylan, because I mean we've saw on the old Atlanta surface Kyle was really good there, and then like last weekend on Darlington, a really abrasive surface, good there. Um, I mean, Kyle. I think Kyle is going to be one of the fastest cars, if not the fastest, this weekend at North Wilkesboro. And speaking of the fastest, Kyle Larson just went quick time in hot laps with the High Limit Sprint Car Series at Wayne County. So good start to the night there. We're going to be posting all the updates of that on our Twitter. So yeah, big time week of racing coming up. Truck Series and the Cup Series, Wayne County tonight. And I think that's all we have confirmed for right now, Dylan.
Yeah, yeah, I think that should be it. Like you said, Wilkesboro throwing it back to old NASCAR. And now all they need is to throw it back to the Gen 4, 5, or 6 car, and then we'll be pretty good going there. But yeah, I think it'll be an exciting race. Larson, like you said, he's been really good at the short tracks, but he always sells himself short at these tracks. He said he never thought he'd win at Martinsville. Had a good finish last year, won that this year. So I don't think anyone's really stopping him but Chastain this year. So just steer clear of the idiots that are just ruining his day. And there's really no one faster than him right now. Like you said in the beginning, 5, 6 wins is what we should have. Just absolute dominance, record-breaking year, leading all the laps. So, this team's definitely got it figured out. And once they steer clear of that bad luck, they're really going to be a scary team. Really going to be scary deep in the playoffs, I think. So, only time will tell. Hopefully, this stuff kind of cools down and we can just get back to normal racing. We don't have to any late race bull crap, any NASCAR overtime. It's just smooth sailing, and none of that would have happened. Larson was what, like 2 seconds ahead, and then Newman had that wreck. He spun out, and that's what always happens, dude. All these races that Larson could have won, it's always due to some late race caution, and cautions breed cautions, and that's what happens. But super fast. It's a good time to be a Larson fan, in terms of the performance on the track, but just got to steer clear of all the wrecks, and then we'll be good to go.
Yeah. So two last like little side notes I wanted to just bring to light to everyone. Number one, I wanted to point out how good the pit crew's been. The pit crew has been awesome. They've been lights out every single week. They like I know earlier in the season and last parts of last season, people would come on social media and gripe about the pit crew and the pit stops and how he was, or even like the beginning of the season, losing spots to Byron on pit road like multiple weeks in a row. Dude, the pit crew is at the top of their game right now. They are lights out, putting Kyle out in front every single time. I mean, if they're not gaining spots, the only time they're not gaining spots is when they're in first, and he can't go any higher. I mean, they are just have been awesome. And then second point, just wanted to tell everybody, I did see Ross Chastain on the entry list for the truck race at North Wilkesboro too. So we're not out of it in that one, but at least Ross is not competing at Wayne County tonight with the High Limit Sprint Car Series. So we should
Yeah.
be good there. But we've got two races with Ross Chastain this weekend. Obviously, depending on if Kyle and Ross qualify their way into the truck race. I think there's 40 cars for, or how many spots is that? 36 spots. I think it's 40 cars
Not
for
sure.
36 spots there. So hopefully Kyle can qualify. Maybe Ross will be slow and won't make it in. But I think that should pretty much wrap up today's show. We'll be back again next week to recap all of the action from North Wilkesboro, as well as any other events that Kyle competes in. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you never miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and we will see you in the next episode.